The Thing wasn't just a sci-fi horror movie, it was a nightmarish crucible that nearly broke its cast and crew. When John Carpenter set out to film The Thing in the frozen wilderness, he couldn't have anticipated the brutal conditions that would push his team to the breaking point. From frostbitten crew members collapsing on set, to practical effects that made technicians vomit, to actors becoming genuinely paranoid of each other off camera. This wasn't filmmaking, this was survival. Today we're revealing 20 weird facts about The Thing that even die-hard fans don't know. And stick around for our bonus fact, the shocking truth about why this box office disaster eventually became one of the most influential horror films ever made. Hit play and prepare to see this masterpiece of paranoia in a whole new light. The infamous blood test scene wasn't in the script. The nerve-shredding blood test scene where MacReady tests his teammates wasn't in Bill Lancaster's original screenplay. It wasn't planned, it was born from desperation. 3 weeks into filming, Carpenter realized he needed a definitive way to create tension between the characters. He called Lancaster at 2 a.m. with the idea, and the writer hammered out the scene overnight. What audiences didn't know is that Kurt Russell's shocked reaction when the blood jumps from the petri dish was completely genuine. The special effects team had positioned the mechanical effect to fire at a slightly different moment than Russell expected, creating that perfect moment of terror. The blood test scene wasn't just movie magic, it was calculated manipulation of the actors to generate authentic fear. The dog wasn't acting, it was genuinely terrified. The Norwegian dog that brings the alien to the American base was played by a half-wolf, half-husky named Jed, but Jed wasn't acting afraid. He was genuinely terrified of the man in the alien costume. The production team tried everything to get Jed comfortable around the monster suit, but nothing worked. The solution? They brought in Jed's trainer dressed in an identical monster suit. For weeks, the trainer fed Jed while wearing pieces of the costume until the dog associated the alien with positive experiences. What audiences see isn't trained performance. It's the gradual overcoming of genuine animal fear. The trainer even had to be on set in a partial alien costume, just out of frame, to keep Jed calm during the transformation scene. Not movie training, but psychological conditioning. The cast was deliberately kept isolated to fuel paranoia. Carpenter didn't just want his characters to feel paranoid, he needed his actors to embody it. He deliberately housed the cast in separate cabins far from civilization during the brutal winter shoot in Stewart, British Columbia. No families allowed, no outside contact encouraged. Kurt Russell later revealed, "John wanted us to feel isolated, just like the characters." And it worked. After a few weeks, we started getting suspicious of each other. You'd notice someone disappear for a few hours and wonder what they were really doing. The isolation wasn't just logistical convenience, it was psychological manipulation. Cast members began accusing each other of sneaking calls to their families or having secret meetings with producers. The paranoia we see on screen wasn't just acting, it was bleeding from real life into the film. The actors developed a real-life drinking problem on set. The Thing's production wasn't just physically demanding, it was psychologically devastating. Filming in below-freezing temperatures for 12-plus hours daily while wearing Arctic gear under hot studio lights created a pressure cooker environment. The solution? Alcohol. Lots of it. Keith David, who played Childs, admitted, "We drank like fish. It was the only way to decompress after those intense scenes." What started as casual beers became a genuine concern for production. Several scenes had to be rescheduled because actors were nursing hangovers. Kurt Russell even incorporated his real-life drinking into his character, suggesting MacReady's ever-present bottle of J&B Scotch. The drinking wasn't just character development, it was a coping mechanism that blurred the lines between fiction and reality, with several cast members later admitting they developed alcohol problems during filming. The set literally caught fire during filming. The Thing's production wasn't just metaphorically heated, it literally erupted in flames. During filming of the intense flamethrower scenes, a massive practical effect went haywire. What was supposed to be a controlled burn became a raging inferno that engulfed a significant portion of the set. 3 crew members suffered minor burns, and filming was shut down for 5 days. The incident wasn't just a safety hazard, it created genuine terror among the cast that translated directly to screen. During subsequent flamethrower scenes, the fear in the actors' eyes wasn't performance, it was the raw memory of actual danger. Kurt Russell later refused to have stand-ins for his flamethrower scenes, insisting that authentic reactions came from actual proximity to fire. The production didn't just court danger, it embraced it, creating a volatile atmosphere that permeates every frame. Universal forced Carpenter to change the original ending. The Thing's cryptic ending, with MacReady and Childs facing the frozen unknown, wasn't Carpenter's original vision. It wasn't what he fought for. Universal executives demanded something more definitive after disastrous test screenings. Carpenter's intended ending was far darker. MacReady and Childs would freeze to death, with the final shot revealing one of them was the Thing, but never telling the audience which one. Studio head Ned Tannen personally intervened, calling it too nihilistic for American audiences. A compromise ending was shot where MacReady is proven human via a blood test, but Carpenter hated it. During final editing, he secretly reverted to his ambiguous version, gambling his career on artistic integrity. When executives finally noticed the film was too close to release to change it back. The ambiguity wasn't an artistic choice, it was an act of directorial rebellion that nearly got Carpenter blacklisted. Rob Bottin's special effects nearly killed him. The grotesque, groundbreaking practical effects weren't just technically challenging, they were physically destructive to their creator. 22-year-old effects prodigy Rob Bottin didn't just work hard on the Thing, he nearly died for it. For over a year, Bottin worked 7 days a week, often sleeping on the studio floor. He developed pneumonia, exhaustion, and a bleeding ulcer that hospitalized him before filming completed. What audiences didn't know was that many of the most iconic transformations were created while Bottin was literally coughing up blood between takes. When the dog Thing's face peels back to reveal the alien inside, those weren't just special effects fluids. Some of Bottin's own blood had contaminated the mechanism during an overnight repair session. Carpenter later said, "Rob didn't just create effects for this movie, he sacrificed his health to make nightmare visions real." The body horror on screen came from a place of genuine physical suffering. The film destroyed relationships with the studio. The Thing wasn't just a commercial disappointment, it was a career-altering disaster for everyone involved. Universal executives were so horrified by the film's grotesque imagery and bleak tone that they essentially disowned it during marketing. Studio head Sidney Sheinberg reportedly walked out of the first screening muttering, "What the hell did we just finance?" Marketing chief Robert Ramey was even more blunt. "We can't sell this thing." Universal slashed the promotional budget a week before release and rushed it into theaters to get it over with. The film's commercial failure wasn't just bad luck, it was institutional sabotage born from executive disgust. Carpenter's relationship with major studios was permanently damaged, forcing him back to independent filmmaking. "They treated us like we'd made something obscene," Carpenter later recalled. Not a film, but a crime. The studio's rejection wasn't just a business decision, it was a moral judgment. E.T. accidentally killed the Thing at the box office. The Thing's box office failure wasn't just about its bleak tone. It was the victim of catastrophically bad timing. Universal released it on June 25, 1982, exactly 2 weeks after another film about an alien visitor, Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. E.T. showed a lovable alien healing flowers and flying bicycles. The Thing featured an alien ripping off a man's head, which then sprouts spider legs and scurries away. Producer David Foster later lamented, "We made the wrong Alien movie at the wrong time. America wanted alien friends, not alien nightmares." The Thing didn't just underperform, it was culturally rejected, earning just $19.6 million against its $15 million budget, while E.T. was racing toward becoming the highest-grossing film of all time. The failure wasn't just financial, it was a devastating referendum on dark, pessimistic filmmaking in the dawn of Reagan's Morning in America. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal the shocking behind-the-scenes secret that almost got this film completely shut down. Something the studio has tried to keep quiet for decades. Kurt Russell wasn't the first choice to play MacReady. Kurt Russell's portrayal of R.J. MacReady is now iconic, but he wasn't the first choice. He wasn't even the second. Carpenter had originally offered the role to Jeff Bridges, who passed. Then it went to Nick Nolte, who also declined. The studio pushed for a bigger name. They wanted Harrison Ford fresh off The Empire Strikes Back. Russell wasn't just a compromise. He was actively opposed by Universal executives who didn't see him as a leading man, still associating him with Disney comedies from his youth. Russell later revealed, "The studio head told John to his face that I didn't have the chops for a serious role like this." Carpenter, who had worked with Russell on Elvis and Escape from New York, fought viciously for him, threatening to walk if another actor was cast. The studio's reluctance wasn't just casting preference, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of Russell's intensity, which proved perfect for the paranoid atmosphere Carpenter needed. The Norwegian dialogue at the beginning is actually plot critical. The opening scene with the Norwegian helicopter pursuing the dog contains crucial plot information. It's not just atmospheric setup. The Norwegian pilot is shouting, "Get away from it. It's not a dog, it's some sort of thing. It imitates." But Carpenter deliberately left these lines unsubtitled. Why? Kurt Russell revealed, "John wanted American audiences to feel the confusion and misunderstanding. If we had known what they were saying, the whole first act would play differently." This wasn't just artistic choice, it was calculated disorientation. The helicopter pilot actor Larry Franco, Carpenter's production manager, didn't even speak Norwegian. He phonetically memorized the lines written by a Norwegian crew member. The failed communication wasn't just diegetic, it was meta. Carpenter wanted viewers to experience the same confusion as the American characters, creating a subtle bond between audience and protagonists against the alien other. The cast developed real frostbite during filming. The Antarctic setting wasn't just a backdrop. It was a physical ordeal that left permanent marks on the cast. Filming in Stewart, British Columbia, during one of its harshest winters on record, temperatures regularly dropped to 40 degrees Celsius with the wind chill. Despite precautions, several actors developed actual frostbite during exterior shots. David Clennon, who played Palmer, lost feeling in 3 fingers for months after filming. Thomas Waits, Windows, suffered frostbite on his ears so severe that makeup had to be applied daily to hide the damage. The production didn't just simulate extreme conditions, it endured them. Carpenter later admitted, "We couldn't fake that kind of cold. When you see their breath, when you see them shivering, that's real suffering." The physical toll wasn't just professional dedication, it was bodily sacrifice that informed every performance, creating authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. Ennio Morricone hated his own soundtrack. The Thing's minimalist, pulse-pounding score is considered a masterpiece of tension, but its composer, legendary Ennio Morricone, originally hated what he created. It wasn't what he wanted to deliver, it was what Carpenter forced him to produce. Morricone, known for sweeping, melodic compositions, originally wrote a full orchestral score in his signature style. Carpenter rejected it entirely, demanding something more electronic and sparse. A furious Morricone recorded the now famous minimalist tracks in a single day, considering them unfinished sketches rather than proper compositions. What audiences don't realize is that several tracks in the final film aren't even Morricone's. Carpenter secretly inserted pieces of his own synthesizer music when Morricone refused to create more material. The Italian maestro was so embarrassed by the soundtrack that he omitted it from his official discography for decades. The iconic score wasn't born from artistic harmony. It emerged from creative conflict. The film had a secret female character that was cut. The Thing's all-male cast wasn't the original plan. It wasn't Carpenter's vision. The screenplay featured a female geologist named Nicola Pecorini, written specifically for Adrienne Barbeau, Carpenter's then wife. Studio executives forced Carpenter to eliminate the character just weeks before filming, arguing that a woman would change the dynamic of the isolated men. The real reason was more cynical. Internal memos reveal executives believed the graphic violence would alienate female viewers anyway, so why bother including female characters? The decision wasn't just casting, it was calculated demographic targeting. Carpenter later called it his biggest regret about the production. Removing the female character made it a less interesting dynamic. The paranoia would have played differently with mixed genders. The film's hyper-masculine environment wasn't an artistic choice. It was a studio-mandated commercial decision that fundamentally altered the story's psychological landscape. The blood in the film is a bizarre chemical cocktail. The gallons of blood seen throughout the Thing aren't the standard Hollywood corn syrup and food coloring. They're not even remotely edible. Rob Bottin created a toxic chemical mixture that moved more realistically under the freezing filming conditions. The concoction contained antifreeze, detergent, and formaldehyde, among other chemicals, making it highly toxic to the touch. Several crew members developed severe rashes from exposure. Kurt Russell accidentally ingested a small amount during the blood test scene, requiring medical attention and halting production for half a day. The chemical blood wasn't just visually effective, it was legitimately dangerous. Safety protocols required hazmat teams to clean the set after particularly bloody scenes, with special disposal procedures for the contaminated materials. The horror on screen wasn't just fiction, it was literally toxic, creating genuine biohazard conditions that the production team navigated daily. A stuntman nearly died during the flamethrower scenes. The intense flamethrower sequences weren't just visually spectacular, they were genuinely life-threatening. During the scene where the Palmer Thing is immolated, stuntman Dick Warlock suffered a catastrophic equipment failure. His protective gel layer separated from his fire suit, causing second-degree burns over 15% of his body before safety crews could extinguish the flames. What audiences don't realize is that the Palmer Thing's terrifying death screams aren't just sound effects. They include actual audio of Warlock's pain, accidentally captured by production microphones. Carpenter considered removing the audio, but kept it, believing it added authentic horror. The danger wasn't just a production challenge, it was a moral quandary. Warlock spent 2 weeks in the hospital and still has visible scars across his back and shoulders. The visceral impact of these scenes wasn't just artistic achievement, it came at a genuine human cost. The infamous chest chomp scene traumatized a crew member. The shock defibrillation scene, where Dr. Copper's arms are bitten off by Norris's chest mouth, isn't just movie magic, it's psychological trauma captured on film. The scene was so realistic that a lighting technician fainted on set, cracking his head open on equipment and requiring hospitalization. The incident wasn't just a testament to Rob Bottin's effects. It revealed the psychological toll of the production. Several crew members requested transfers to other units after witnessing the chest cavity effect being tested. The mechanical chest required 7 puppeteers operating simultaneously, creating a bizarre choreography beneath the set floor. Actor Richard Dysart, who played Dr. Copper, later admitted he couldn't watch the scene for years after filming. Seeing my character's arms torn off, it triggered something primal. The revulsion audiences feel watching the scene isn't just effective filmmaking, it's the same visceral reaction experienced by those who created it. The full-body alien costume caused a nervous breakdown. The final form of the thing, the twisted, multi-limbed monstrosity that confronts MacReady, required an actor to perform inside a suffocating toxic suit for hours. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was psychologically devastating. Stuntman Eddie Edmonds lasted only 4 days in the role before suffering what production documents euphemistically called a severe anxiety episode, actually a full nervous breakdown requiring psychiatric intervention. The suit, weighing over 80 pounds, restricted breathing and vision while being saturated with toxic adhesives to maintain its appearance. What audiences don't realize is that a different performer was inside the creature for each shooting day, as no single person could endure the conditions for the entire filming schedule. The aliens' jerky, unnatural movements weren't just artistic direction, they were the result of genuinely disoriented performers struggling to function inside what one called a mobile torture chamber. The dog trainer secretly used illegal methods. The eerily convincing performance of Jed the wolf dog came at a disturbing cost. It wasn't just skilled animal training, it involved methods so controversial they would be illegal today. Animal trainer Clint Rowe employed shock collars and physical intimidation techniques that violated American Humane Association guidelines, but escaped scrutiny by filming in remote Canadian locations with lax oversight. Several crew members reported Rowe to production, but economic pressures kept him on the job. Kurt Russell later confronted Rowe after witnessing him striking Jed between takes, nearly causing a physical altercation that assistants had to break up. The tension wasn't just off-camera drama, it affected filming. The scene where MacReady encounters the dog in the hallway had to be reshot numerous times because Russell refused to make eye contact with Rowe, who was standing just out of frame. The animal performances weren't just movie magic, they were controversial techniques that the production deliberately obscured. Test audiences fled the theater in disgust. The Thing's first test screening wasn't just unsuccessful, it was catastrophically disastrous. During the initial preview in Los Angeles, 35 people walked out, including executive Peter Guber's wife, who loudly declared, "You guys are sick," on her way to the exit. Comment cards weren't just negative, they were hostile, with multiple audience members suggesting the filmmakers needed psychiatric help. One female viewer was so disturbed by the chest-chomping scene that she fainted in the lobby, prompting a lawsuit that Universal later settled out of court. The screening wasn't just a commercial failure, it was a moral indictment. Carpenter was devastated, later admitting, "I thought I'd made a movie too extreme for audiences to accept." The studio demanded extensive cuts that Carpenter refused to make, creating a standoff that permanently damaged his relationship with Universal. The rejection wasn't just about preferences, it was about boundaries of acceptable imagery that the Thing brazenly violated. The Thing's commercial and critical failure wasn't just a professional setback for John Carpenter, it triggered a severe depressive episode that lasted nearly 3 years and fundamentally altered his career trajectory. What fans don't know is that Carpenter entered therapy directly after the film's release, struggling with what he called existential questions about the worth of making films no one wants to see. He turned down multiple major studio projects during this period, including adaptations of Stephen King's Firestarter and Clive Barker's Hellraiser. The depression wasn't just personal struggle, it changed cinema history. Carpenter's close friend Kurt Russell later revealed, "The Thing's failure broke something in John. The movies he made after weren't just different stylistically, they came from a different man." The film that's now celebrated as a masterpiece initially devastated its creator, proving that artistic vindication sometimes comes too late to heal the wounds of its original rejection. The Thing wasn't just ahead of its time, it was a prophecy about our cultural paranoia. our fear of the invisible enemy, our suspicion of those who might not be what they appear. 40 years later, its themes of contagion, identity, and isolation resonate more powerfully than ever. The cast and crew didn't just make a movie, they endured a crucible that transformed them, much like the alien entity at the center of their story. Their suffering, their conflicts, and their sheer determination created something that transcended its initial rejection to become one of the most studied and revered horror films ever made. If you enjoyed these revelations about The Thing, hit subscribe for more deep dives into cinema's most fascinating productions. And remember, watch the ice, watch it very carefully.